Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Music and Moonsaults. I am your host, Chris Bourdine, and on today's show, the Wrestling Wayback Machine for the month of May 2021, as my cat jumps up next to me to say hello. Say hi, Bassett. Anyways, Joe Hulbert is back on the show, and we are going to talk TNA Sacrifice 2006. Joe, will you get down, please? Jeez, so unprofessional. This is Joe's third time on the show. He, of course, was here for the WrestleMania draft a couple months ago, and he was on back in December, to talk about, the, Starrcade 2000. So I asked him to come back on and talk some TNA with me, and he was up for it. And it's a real fun conversation, as always. Joe's a pro. He's a great dude. And yeah, it's just a good time. So if you could give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Leave a comment if you so choose. That'd be greatly appreciated as well. Also, the audio is available if you go to anchor.fm / Christopher-Bourdine5, and they'll point you where you need to go as far as Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all that good kind of stuff. So, without further ado, take a quick little break, and Joe will be on to talk TNA Sacrifice 2006. Keep it rolling. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back, returning to the Music and Moonsaults channel, Joe Hulbert from The Distraction on Fightful. Joe, how are we doing today?
I was just thinking there, Chris, I think it's my third appearance, right? We include the draft.
It is.
A lot less hair this time for me.
Yes, I wanted to thank you. I thanked you in the DMs, but I want to thank you now in public for doing that. So now I have the best looking hair on screen. I appreciate it.
No, that's fine. That's fine, man. I thought about it, and that was my main reason. Like, I was like, let's get Chris get the best hair on this upcoming sacrifice. I'm going to get rid of the hair. But yeah, no, I'm just glad to be here, man. It's fun. It's interesting as we get into this. I think we can discuss this, but this show to me is the complete opposite of what we reviewed last time, where it's like pretty steady and in the middle. The last show we reviewed was firmly on one end of the scale, right? So we'll get into that. But it was fun.
Yeah. I had it grew because I was upset at the Peacock because they had taken all my beloved 2001 content. It wasn't loaded at first. And so I was very upset. So I'm like, screw those guys. I'm not reviewing anything that would be on the Peacock. I'll go the TNA route. And I knew of anyone I know of my wrestling friends who would be willing to talk TNA, you would probably be at the top of the list. So
it was an insult, but yeah, I feel you.
It's not though. Like, look, especially this era, 2006, TNA. I have this like, kind of like you with late, like when we did the Starrcade 2000, like right. you have sort of that sick like love hate for that era.
Yes.
Like I have the same thing for TNA from like 2004 when the Impact show started on the Fox Sports affiliates all the way through probably when they tried to start the Monday Night Wars up again in 2010. Like right. those 6 years or so though, I was really into TNA because they're interesting that they had both feet firmly in different, like they had a bunch of people that you recognize from before, and then they also had like the next generation of top guys.
Right. Yes.
So it's a real interesting time and a real interesting company.
it's almost, and obviously we'll go match by match, but
Yeah.
like talking generally, and I came to the same conclusion you just pointed out there, where it's like you have this kind of, it's very much WCW. When you have guys like Steiner, Jarrett, Sting, but then also you have these guys that at this point are still working Ring of Honor, and they're like the hot indie guys, like a Joe and AJ Daniels. I guess Daniels at this point is like 40, which is incredible. But it's a strange promotion. I talk about it a lot on Twitch, but if you said to me, what's TNA's peak? I think that's one of the most difficult questions in the history of professional wrestling, because I don't really know.
You're right.
Like, I mean, I think there's a lot of good on this show, but there's also some bad.
Yes.
And I struggle to think of an era, and I know that all wrestling, Chris, as we both know, all wrestling has good and bad, right? Mm-hmm. But with TNA, it really feels like a violent split at all times. Yeah. I never know if they really tick the boxes fully in a way that maybe a 96 WCW did or a 2000 WWF did.
Right.
They're just they're TNA, man. They're all over the shot, right? That's what they do. It's interesting, though. It's fun to watch.
I believe it was you on a Twitch stream. You said something to the effect of TNA was WCW's shitty cousin or something like that.
Yeah. I think because we were talking about Impact, right, and Legacy. And I always struggle because here's the thing: I never want to be the LOL TNA guy, because I don't believe that. Right. Wrestling is wrestling. All promotions are dumb. It's wrestling. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, when you really sit back and kind of look at what they brought to the business, it's like, well, I mean, they did the cruiserweights and put an X on it. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's not a lot of jumps on the page. They are very much the kind of shitty, like family member that no one talks about of WCW. But hey, a lot of great talent, which obviously we'll get to here.
Yeah, that's never been TNA's problem. Is a lack of talent. At least like the actual quote unquote TNA run. You can make the case probably once they made the switch over to Impact, there were times, especially when you couldn't find them to watch them, where maybe they were lacking a little bit in the talent department. But for the most part, again, especially in this era, whether it was the stars of old or the future, like they never had a lack of talent.
No, they didn't. But I think it's really interesting, and you know this because you see me on Twitch talk about it all the time, so I apologize. But I'm always fascinated by their inability to sell pay-per-views, So I looked up, this event is reported at around 20 to 25,000 buyers. And you just think, how? I mean, I don't know what their TV numbers were at this time, Chris, but I mean, they're on Spike.
Yes.
So it's like, they should be doing more than 25,000 pay-per-view buyers. That's troubling.
Put that in perspective, that's a little bit over 25% of what November or December to Dismember did. Because that did like 90,000.
Yeah.
And that's like...
And that was a catastrophe.
That's generally considered the worst pay-per-view of all time. Like,
right.
So, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's like if you look at the AEW ratio of TV viewers to pay-per-view buyers, the TV number is way lower and the pay-per-view buyers are way up. Yeah. It's the audience has just changed. Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, this is pre-Russo too, which is hilarious because they make a joke about him on here, which we'll get to. But yeah, they just never quite convinced their audience to pay money, which is fair. I don't know. We'll see.
It's in between Russo, right? Because he was there at the very beginning and then left and then came back and then left. Like he played hokey pokey with TNA for many years. I
believe he comes in like 6 months after this.
Okay.
So it is a different time. I think you can tell it's more wrestling than when Russo gets out.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I actually went 2 months before this pay-per-view, which we're covering Sacrifice. I should probably get this out of the way. We're covering Sacrifice 2006, which happened May 14th, 2006, at the Impact Zone down in Orlando. 2 months prior to this, me and Blue Tick Matt and a bunch of his buddies from school, it was St. Patrick's Day. It was Matt's birthday. We went to a TNA house show. They did one in suburban Detroit. And it was a really, really cool show. Joe and AJ wrestled, which that can't be bad. ICP wrestled Team Canada.
That can be bad.
That can be. They did a funny spot where somehow Scott D'Amore's glasses got knocked off his face, and he ended up giving a Canadian destroyer to one of the members of Team Canada. It was ridiculous.
Wow, I mean, that sounds great. Actually,
It was
the one thing I'll say is, I mean, I've already got my dunks off around here, but I will say everyone, and I experienced it myself, their house show experience has always been critically acclaimed.
Yeah.
Now, they didn't fill those arenas much, but people that went, everyone says it, they tried their hardest, they worked hard. Borash as a host, whoever it may be, Don West always moved merchandise. Like, they always were a great show. You know, it's just unfortunate they couldn't get out more, to be honest. That's the real shame.
Yeah, they didn't. I mean, they played a junior hockey arena, is where this was at. So, yeah, not exactly a big place, but I think their first, if I'm not mistaken, their first pay-per-view outside of the Impact Zone was also in Detroit. I think it was in that same building, Bound for Glory 06, I think. Wasn't that their first one? I want to say you're correct.
Yeah, I think I watched that like pretty recently. I think you're correct. Yeah. I because I seem to remember Rhino and Christian doing like Detroit Street Fight or something of that ilk.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Impact Zone, and I know again, like I apologize, Chris, because I'm all over the place.
No, it's fine. I love this. So I said this on our live stream. I find it puzzling. It never looks quite right, these shows. No.
You have this. I understand you're limited because you have basically 400 people in the studio, or maybe 600, 800. I don't know what it is, but it's not a lot of people. And they're there and they're into it and they're having fun, especially this time. Later on, it gets really kind of dark.
Yeah.
But it all looks very, I don't know. I think if I was being complimentary, I would say it looks gritty and kind of edgy, but it kind of just looks flat. There's no atmosphere to the place, you know. It really stands out when you go back to a pay-per-view to me. I don't know. What do you think? Am I wrong on this?
No, I think you're right. Like I mean, Bischoff talks about it all the time on his podcast whenever they cover TNA. Like he desperately tried to get them out of the Impact Zone, like any chance he could, because it's just a matter of, I think, and you equate it to like NXT today, pre-pandemic with Full Sail, but at least with Full Sail, yes, it was maybe not aesthetically pleasing to the eye, but you knew that the people there were there to see NXT and they were rabid for that product. Not always the case with the TNA crowd at, Universal Studios Orlando. A lot of them are, just there and they come inside to get out of the heat and, there's a wrestling show. I guess we'll watch that.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think, but it's the truth. I think the biggest thing, it's a real shame they couldn't get out more for the pay-per-views,
Yes.
It really feels, it's one thing to take your TV and, it's a cheap way to do it. But, man, when you lock into a pay-per-view like this, it's like, wow, this is just the Impact Zone.
Yeah.
It's hard, it's hard to make it look special. But the match card on paper, at least, as you see with this opener, even, like, there's a lot here.
I didn't look at the card beforehand. I'm just like, I saw what I looked to see what the pay-per-view for May of that year was, and I was like, okay, cool. And then I just sat down and watched it, and to my surprise, they always had great openings. The guy who did the voiceovers for TNA had a great voice, and it always was like made it sound so dramatic and cool, and I always loved their opening packages. But then then I hear Liger's music, and I'm like, holy crap, here we go! Like, this is awesome. So the first match is Juice and Liger versus P.D. Williams. Can you explain the idea and the point system of the World X Cup, Joe? Because I sure as hell cannot.
I was so confused. And then later on, there's like a 16-man gauntlet. It's so daunting. There's so much going on.
Yeah.
All I knew was, I thought, okay, we've got Liger, we've got Petey. This should be good. I must say, before I go any further in defense of these two gentlemen, I think I got carried away with how good I thought this match would be.
Yeah.
It's fine, right? Like,
yeah.
I think you see Liger and you're like, oh, we're about to get. It's like, no, not really. He's wrestling in the Impact Zone. It's fine.
Yeah.
Petey Williams, he's really interesting because he really was like a centerpiece of the X Division.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like he's one of those ones that's fell through the cracks of history to me. And he's still there. I think he's a producer, he wrestles sometimes. But when you hear people talk about the great X Division guys, it seems like he falls off the list more than not, which is unfair, I think, in some way. I mean, the Canadian Destroyer, man, people say it won. That thing was over.
Well, yeah,
right?
I was gonna say
that
was the move. Like that was. I remember the first time I saw that, I lost my mind. That was. It's like anything else, you know. It was like it's like the DDT was way back in the day, you know. Like it's anything like that. It happens, unfortunately. It seems like as the business evolves or devolves, however you know, whatever your point of view is. But yeah, like that, and you can tell by the crowd reaction. Like now, when someone does a destroyer, that you get a few oohs and ahs, but it's, you know, it's like whatever, unless it's some crazy one like on the apron or something like that, or it's Bad Bunny or
something. Right, Bad Bunny. Yeah, there you go.
Something unexpected, but here, like he set up, you know, he didn't hit it in this match, but he sets up for it, and the crowd, you know, even that crowd is like, oh, we know what's coming. Like, this is really cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Pete was very good. The thing with Liger is, and I'm not an expert on this, so I apologize if I'm wrong, but I believe this is at a weird time in his career. I think this is when he's done his heel turn. He's wearing the all black.
Mm-hmm.
It give me big time. You know, I think I've become used to the New Japan guys coming over and working these hot Ring of Honor shows of maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And you know, the crowds loved them. This give me big time, like New Japan guy working WCW Worldwide vibes. Yeah. You know, like I don't think you can convince Liger it's a big show and he looks out there and sees, you know, 800 in the It was a little clunky early. They got into it. Okay, it was fine, right?
Yeah. PD. I thought it was weird they had PD kick out of a Liger bomb. But then, you know, there's a low blow. And, well, speaking of the low blow, like, I was like, there's no way that's Hiroki Goto.
Yeah, right? Yeah,
he's a young boy Hiroki Goto in the all black and stuff like that, and really short hair and all that. I'm like, wow, okay, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. I do love that system, I must say. You know, I think maybe it's the writer in me and the kind of narrative she can get from it, but there is something awful romantic to that system, right? The really up and down hierarchy they build in Japan. I mean, it's wonderful, but it was fun to see him here. It felt like a match that was positioned to be a hot opener and ended up being a cool opener. Yeah, right? It was cool. It was fine.
Yeah,
you're right. Yes.
Yeah.
They never seemed to fully click. But which, you know, again, I think what's interesting is two things. So I think there's only one match on here that I would deem to be less than fine. I think the rest of this show, we're going to say that a lot. It's fine.
Yes.
However, I do think it's interesting. You mentioned the finish of this. They can't help themselves with these finishes, can they? You know, everyone's got to do. Yep. Everyone's got to get hit in the balls. Everyone's falling down.
Yep.
But you know, it is what it is. It's American wrestling. I think
I did like.
It was even more common back then, right?
Yeah,
even more common.
I did like the post match of them laying the Japanese flag on PD, because you know that was the Team Canada shtick, was draping people with the Canadian flag. So this was a nice and shout out to Cassidy, the CTU faction, which was clearly someone in New Japan was got a DVD set of 24 finally, and was like, hey, we'll name a stable CTU.
Yeah, I must say, you know, we poked fun at the concept earlier, and we rightly did that because it makes no sense and it's insane. And you know, there's points and there's
yes.
But I will say, it's funny how much if AEW announced something similar tomorrow, Twitter would lose their mind, right? Mm-hmm. You know, Japan, Mexico, But in this setting, it almost feels kind of like it's so undercooked too, and it doesn't feel like they've really thought about it.
Yeah,
it's a shame. I said earlier that this show really encapsulates the good and bad of TNA. Honestly, that idea encapsulates it.
Yes.
Great talent,
great idea,
concept.
Great. Yeah. Just they're like, not really sure how to execute it, so we'll just throw it out there.
Yeah, and it gets, you know, later on, it's like, wow, this is a little much. But up next, we have something actually really great, I thought. So
so after that, they, you know, we get the shot of Sting in his locker room, and Samoa Joe in his locker room. You know, they're teaming up later, and you know, can they coexist, Joe?
Well, I must say that whole thing is that's incredible, right? What a trope that has proved to be. Just more and more. We got to get used to it, Chris. It's only going to come more and more. But I'll say this much: I actually liked the dynamic with those two on this show.
Oh yeah,
I really did. I thought it was fun.
No,
you know, it can work. It can work. Just it needs to have some depth beyond. Can they coexist?
It can work in when it's used sparingly. When it's done every week,
yes,
it loses its effectiveness.
Speaking from experience, as of late, right? Yeah, I agree with
yes. And then we get an AMW promo. My intent was because you know we had talked about doing this like I think at the end of March. Like I hit you up about doing this. So my intent was like I was gonna watch from the beginning of April through this to kind of get myself familiarized with what you know. Remembering what was going on in this time period. I got one episode and then life gets in the way. So that didn't happen. I completely forgot about Gail Kim being like the AMW manager.
And Jeff Jarrett. Like she's like, it's weird. I didn't remember any of this
weird
stuff.
faction of AMW, Jarrett and Scott Steiner with Gail Kim as like the manager. And then Jackie Gata is there randomly. She announces she's pregnant, and then Gail Kim fires her, which I'm pretty sure is illegal. But you know,
yeah, I mean, in TNA though, feels on brand, right? Yes, doesn't feel like a stretch in this promotion. But I'm with you, yeah.
But yeah,
interesting segment here.
Very. But yes, this match rules, as one Sean Ross Sapp would say. By far the best match on this show, I think. I thought for sure that if this was the match where AJ and Daniels win the titles, but obviously it's not. But it's AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels versus AMW for the NWA Tag Team titles. And my God, this was fantastic.
I get why we don't talk about his run a lot, right? AJ has had 101 all-time runs. We get it. Well, I understand. Chris Daniels has had, you know, an amazing team with Kazarian. But even with that being said, we don't talk about his team enough because this babyface dynamic of AJ and Daniels is awesome. And they have a great little run here because they end up working LAX and some great matches. Like, they just kill it. Yeah.
I was going to say, they win the titles eventually from A&W and then pretty much go right into a feud with LAX for the rest of the summer into the, you know, I think that's at that Bound of Glory we were talking about. It's a cage match between those two.
It's
teams.
Killer. Yeah, I watched it recently.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's a wonderful match. They do some great. I love the thing. I've spoken about this before, but I love when the babyface team actually uses their brains and wrestles like a team. Mm-hmm. You know, they isolated. I think I can't remember which member they did it to. They isolated one of them. They was working a body part for a bit. It's like I know that's not where the match is going to go.
Right.
But it tells me as a viewer that they also have tactics, which is really, really nice. AJ is just, at this point, just an athletic anomaly.
The springboard...
Like, he does, like, a clothesline in the corner and springs across the ring like a superhero. It's incredible.
And then he does the springboard crossbody, like, into the third row over the guardrail. And then, AJ and Daniels had some great tandem offense. There was a Pele kick into a Death Valley driver combo. That was pretty cool. And then AMW had some good, like, they did like a reverse DDT electric chair.
Yeah, man. It's just wild.
Onto AJ. Like, it's some great stuff. I think James Storm throws maybe the most underrated super kick. Like,
James Storm,
crisp looking.
Yeah. Just underrated in general.
Well,
right?
yeah.
Like, he's one of those guys that I think people wrongly list as, like, they think of him as a gimmick and a character. And it's like, he is those things, but he can go.
Yes.
Like, James Storm is so well trained. And I was thinking when I was watching this, and look, you may disagree, I don't know, people will probably split on it, but to me, it's like, it's wild that this is Storm's second best TNA team. Because I prefer being one. That's just
of course.
You know.
Of course.
But I feel like people are so down on Bob Roode, they might disagree. Personally, I think Beer Money's an all-time team. But like,
no,
it's crazy, man.
I think
he's that good, you know?
I think, because it's the more recent one.
Right.
Like, I don't think AMW gets talked about nearly enough.
No, I agree. Yeah, they're a core piece of this early TNA stuff.
Yes.
4 years, 5 years. So
Yes.
I think you're right. It's another guy. Storm's another guy that I think, unfortunately, because of the choices he made, and look, God bless him, he did what was right for his family. He got the most money.
Yes.
That's it. You're a pro wrestler, right?
Yeah.
God bless. But I think what could happen here, unfortunately, is if TNA doesn't do what they've done recently. I've been really happy to see that they're trying to celebrate their own history more.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want a guy like that to be forgotten because, man, was he good, right?
Yes.
And he's still good.
Mm-hmm.
This is 15 years ago. It's incredible. But I really enjoyed this. You know what? I enjoyed it so much, Chris. I didn't even hate the finish. I did not even hate the finish, which I've sensed a lot of people would have hated.
Well, especially, again, coming off of the finish of the first match, we get another, screwy finish where there's a ref bump. Gail Kim was barred from ringside for this match. So to get around that, she goes to the top of the impact zone in the rafters, and she drops a nightstick in the ring. And then AJ hits James Storm with a Styles Clash and pins him, but then Chris Harris comes from behind and hits him in the back of the neck with the nightstick, and AMW picks up the victory to retain the titles.
The visual of the nightstick just dropping in the ring was wild.
Yes.
And then it did a cut, and I was like, "Oh, it's Sting." Oh no, go Kim. It was weird. I was very confused what Sting had to do. I will say, we have very positive back match, right? So it's great, but the fact that they were doing Tower of Doom spots back then, and it's like it got a reaction.
Yeah.
I can see why they never got rid of that thing. It's still here. We're gonna get those spots forever. But no, it was great. I think two great teams, four very good wrestlers.
Yes.
Chris Harris, bless him, firmly supplanted as the fourth in that, in history and such. But he was great here too. Everyone was great. It was a great match.
No, he was. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. He gets world title shots after AMW split up. He's a player, and then he just again he takes the money. I'm assuming it was for more money, but he goes to WWE and
right.
Things
just didn't work out.
Yeah,
right.
No.
I think he's kind of a really cautionary tale.
Yes.
It's a shame. It's one of those things where it's like I hope it was the money because I have a bad feeling it was an opportunity thing where he thought if I make it big there, it's a big if, right? We've seen that many a time, Chris. Yes. It's a big if, but
very big.
Nonetheless, he has this run to be proud of. It's very good stuff.
We get. I like how they do match backstage segment, match backstage segment. It's very boom, 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 boom. And it just kind of, you don't get too much of one thing in a row. So we get another Jeremy Borash interview. He's talking to Larry Zbyszko, who's head of the championship committee, but then there's someone else that the TNA management is bringing in, but they won't tell him who. And he's paranoid about it. And Slick Johnson's there, and he's like, well, I heard it's going to be the Ultimate Warrior. It's the thought of the Ultimate Warrior coming in to be an authority figure in 2006 is just hilarious.
It's wild. So I think he does Warrior, Piper, and Russo, right?
Yes.
And unless I'm mistaken, it's Cornette. I think is who he ends up here. But
I thought Cornette was already here, but you're probably. I think you're probably right. It's either Cornette
I'm not sure, but
it might even be Dusty, because I know there was a point where Dusty was in here too.
I think that's before.
Okay.
I think that's before, because I want to say this is when he comes back and does stuff with Alton and stuff in WWE. Dusty had a hell of a run here in the 2000s, but I think if it is Cornette, we'll run with that as a bit here. I love the idea of him watching this pay-per-view and laughing at the idea of Russo, and it's little do you know, Jimmy, it's coming, my friend. It's right behind you. But Larry Zbyszko is kind of fun in this role, right? Mm-hmm. He's fun. I mean, he's so shticky and over the top, but he's standing next to A1 in a feud with Raven. Do the shtick, have fun with it, man. It's silly stuff, right? But
right.
This was something. This was a pretty lengthy segment for a little backstage skit, I must say.
Yeah. Whatever happened to A1? He just disappeared.
No idea. Right. So Team Canada was him, Petey, Eric, and Rude,
Bobby,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they had a couple. In the gauntlet, they had a couple other members.
Yeah.
Members, but those are the core. That's the core.
Yeah, it's
Team
wild
Canada.
because I bet any money that at the time, if you'd have asked some of the guys, the agents, that have said, "Oh, A1's
He's
the
the
star of
one.
the group."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's A1.
Exactly.
You know, but I don't think it quite worked out that way. Something
Yeah.
tells me. But saying that, this match may have told us why it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Raven, though, feels like we're not playing. Best way to judge it. But yeah, this is something. This one, right? This is probably the one you'd say falls short of the fine radar that we said earlier. It's probably a little short of that.
Yeah. Yeah, there wasn't much to this. There's a point where A1 is looking for I'm guessing it was supposed to be a gimmick turnbuckle pad to rip off, and he goes to all 6 corners trying to find it. He keeps yanking on him and none of them are pulling off, and finally he gets it. It was like, oh boy.
I have to say too, I know that Raven, the idea of Raven was he was never supposed to be aesthetically pleasing. Yeah. I understand, but this is not his best.
This Raven
visual,
is just,
is it? No.
Like kilt Raven was not not my jam. Raven wins with the Raven effect, and then there's a pull apart. And if there's one thing to get hyped about in 2006, let alone 2021, it's a Raven Larry Zbyszko pull apart.
I didn't understand this, so I have no context. Yes. But from what I could gather, Larry was a chicken shit who was scared of Raven.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing I know, he's leaping across the ring to brawl with a man. It was insane. He was kicking Raven's ass. It was bizarre, wasn't it? I didn't get this, but yes, it was very funny seeing Larry do that. But I don't know, it didn't work for me.
So now we go to another interview. This time it's Borash with Jeff Jarrett and Scott Steiner. You can tell it's 2006 because there's Deal or No Deal references all over the place. And then Jarrett says something weird that I get what he was kind of like when Jericho a few weeks back had the mishap talking about Wardlow, where he, said he had a 13-cent body and $1 million brain or whatever he said that wasn't right. He said that Sting picking Joe, who's undefeated, as his partner makes him desperate. I'm like, no, that just makes him smart.
Yeah. There was another one too where he had like half a good line in the wrong context. So like he did that thing where he goes, you could have picked Luger, and he named some other old guys, and he goes, but they can't keep up with this TNA game. And I was like, you're standing next to Scott Steiner, dude. Like, it's a good idea, but like, can someone have some self-awareness? Say Scott Steiner's next to you, Jeff. He's also an old man.
Yes,
but bless him,
old man with a drop foot, and all kinds of problems.
Exactly right. Like, I mean, bless him. Scott got booed out of the building, 3 years prior in WWE? We're looking at 2-3 years. So,
yes. Yeah,
it's, again, I mean, it sums Jeff up, right? A decent idea, just wrong idea, wrong placement of it. But
right.
Jeff's fine in this role.
Yeah.
I'm glad you picked a show here, Chris, that wasn't, the height of NWA Kingpin Jeff, because that stuff's not for me. This here,
no.
I can work with. This is so
yeah,
cool.
I was gonna I'll talk about it more when we get to that match. We get Bobby Roode versus Rhino next. Man, Scott D'Amore, from what ever since they moved back to Thursdays, I haven't been able to catch Impact because it just doesn't work with my schedule. Right. But when they were still on Tuesdays, like, I was enjoying him as the like head, like the person in charge role, but he was so good at being the obnoxious heel manager for Team Canada. Like, he was fantastic here.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a firm believer in the idea that, we all spend so much time kind of splitting all these wrestlers into categories, right? Like, this guy's a good worker, this guy. I think there is just a skill of professional wrestling, and Scott D'Amore is just good at pro wrestling. Like, whatever you give him to do, he does it with conviction. I agree with you. I think he's wonderful as the authority guy who's just, he actually seems like he's losing grip of what's going on. He's brilliant. Yeah. And here, as you said, he's a classic old school heel manager. He's just good at it. I'm happy for him that, he could have easily been another guy that just kind of fell through he's now pivotal. So good for him because he's great here. The match is, we used that word fine earlier, right?
Yeah.
Feels accurate on this one.
Exactly.
Very fine match.
Yeah. I mean, right, like, Rhino's never been my thing. Like, the gore's cool, but other than that, like I've never like gotten Rhino, I guess. Because I wasn't an ECW guy, so his run there I didn't see, and his WWE stuff was fine, but but I Bobby Roode's great. I forgot that he was using a lariat to the back of the head for his finisher at this point.
Yeah, caught me off guard.
Yeah,
caught me very off guard.
Yeah. But again, we get more shenanigans and outside interference because D'Amore hits Rhino with the hockey stick that the Canadian flag was attached to. Which, as a massive hockey fan, I think that's what I love most about Team Canada is not only did they carry a Canadian flag to the ring, it was attached to a hockey stick.
Yeah, it does roll. I'm with you. That's great. I don't know. It's interesting watching this, Chris. It was exactly what I expected in the sense that it was just a very rigid in structure television match on pay-per-view, which is fine.
Yeah.
I do have an interesting kind of, I don't know how I feel about this, but I've got it on my notes and I think it's interesting.
Okay.
We agree, I think the world of Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, one of the greatest wrestlers ever, but I think we both agree that if they go to WWE at this time, bad things happen to them, right? It does not go well.
No.
I watched Bobby Roode here and I feel like he may have been the one guy that if he'd have got out earlier, had a shot, He's so WWE polished. Like the way he does the little things, it's stuff that some of the fans will find boring, to be frank. I don't. I think it's great, but there's something to it, man. I don't know. It's an interesting one. He kind of feels like a what if in a positive sense.
And
I don't know.
He would have, like, playing that what if he would have went over at this time, he definitely would have been one of the better workers in the company. Because this era of WWE wasn't necessarily ripe with great in-ring action. I mean, you had some guys, Shawn was still, Shawn was in the middle of his better run, in my opinion. And you had Ray there, and he who shall not be named was there, and Kurt was still there, but he was starting to break down. You had some guys, but for the most part, it was very heavy on the entertainment part. And one thing I'm not so sure about right here, as part of Team Canada, but eventually, I mean, his mic work is, he's a great promo.
Listen, I really dislike the kind of
I know I don't have to sell Bobby Roode to you.
No, I know. I'm with you. I'm glad we can do this. I mean, I really dislike the kind of mass rebranding that Bobby Roode is just like, he sucks. And I just don't.
No.
Look, wrestling is subjective, right? So if you don't like he's in ring, that's fine, man. I mean, he's what he is. He's kind of old school. Some of his stuff isn't great, granted. But, like, you're right. The mic stuff is really, it feels unheralded. I mean, in NXT, I thought he was a fabulous top heel, was a great promo. In TNA as well, champion, he did a great job. Yeah. I agree with your point, though, that maybe at this time, that element wasn't there. So maybe not. I agree with you. I think Beer Money really brought his personality out in a way that proved important and pivotal later on. But it was fine for what it was. I mean, on this show, when you have stuff like a 16-man gauntlet, sometimes nice to have a 12-minute logical little match. It's fine. It didn't hurt. It was okay.
Yeah. So, Borash interviews Team 3D. This is okay. This is, so people will criticize WWE, and rightfully so, about when you have guys such as AJ and before a couple weeks ago, Samoa Joe, and all these guys that have history with each other from outside of the company, about, unless it's on a documentary, but on the actual on-screen product, they don't acknowledge it. They don't bring it up. TNA is on the completely opposite side of that spectrum. If there is something that happened, no matter how insignificant, that happened in the WWE prior to TNA, they will milk that for everything it's worth and then some. Case in point, this next match. Team 3D, formerly known as the Dudley Boys, versus the James Gang, who were formerly the New Age Outlaws. I couldn't tell, Joe. Did you know that these two teams faced each other only one other time, and it was in February of the year 2000?
I was half waiting for Mike Snape to say, if you go to HMV, you can buy the DVD of this event. I was waiting for, I mean, they were going, they said the date, the venue, they give the finish up, which was a mistake. They should have told me to go and watch it. But
yeah,
I must say, look, I think, here's the thing, okay, here's the deal. These are obviously two teams that people remember fondly, and rightly so. The New Age Outlaws were so over, it's actually like unfathomable. When you rewatch those shows, you cannot believe how popular they are, right? They are, it's ridiculous. And Team 3D had a great run.
They are.
But I must say, Chris.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, on regards to the New Age Outlaws, and it was all the pre-match shtick. Like, that's what it was, because it's not like, I mean, Billy Gunn.
Right, yeah.
Billy Gunn is good. And, you know, Road Dogg is has a pedigree from, you know, his family.
Right.
But I don't think, especially because they didn't need to be, obviously, in that era, but, like, you wouldn't, like, as work rate guys necessarily.
No, I think Road Dogg says so himself. Yeah, I think
they had their last run in WWE, when they won the tag titles in like 2014, I went to a SmackDown. It was the SmackDown after the Rumble where Punk walked out. And the thing I was excited for most was having the New Age Outlaws come down, and I could be in the crowd and chant along with the ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
Like, that was the best part of the night for me. Like.
No, you know, I'm with that. Like, I think the thing is, it is worth a slight disclaimer. Like, I can't, other than the match they have at Mania with Chainsaw Charlie and Mick, I can't name a match of theirs. But I'll say this in their defense. Not that I will willingly do this, but I'm going to do it this time, okay? Here's what I'll say in fairness. There was not a plethora of what you would call work rate teams when they were around, right? So, like, I remember when they came back in that run you just mentioned, they have a little match with the Usos where they drop the belts to them, which is great. So it's like, you know, I accept for them, it's like, it's hard. The Dudleys are interesting because they're an objectively great team in terms of what they achieved. They are not ones that you'll go, let's rattle off our favorite 2-on-2 Dudley matches, right? They're just not that team, and that's fine. But you end up with this weird thing where they seem to view this as a sort of like Clash of the Titans bout of all, you know, one of the great, and they're doing these sort of stare down spots and all that. Well, and I don't think anyone in the Impact Zone really cares that much.
Because
I don't know.
it's that, but because you can't, because they're here under different names, like it loses a big. New Age Outlaws versus the Dudley Boys is a lot different than James Gang versus Team 3D. I don't care when it is. I mean, you could announce that match tomorrow, and you'd still get, if it's New Age Outlaws versus the Dudley Boys, you're going to get a section of the audience who are like, all right, I'm ready for this. Mm-hmm. Never mind the fact that they're all in their 50s now. But, you know, if you say tomorrow the James Gang is going to wrestle Team 3D, you know.
Yeah, no, you're right.
The branding
is everything. Because they seemed, yeah, I agree. It's a shame because they seem to be pretty fired up to have this match. It was pretty spirited. I mean, I've seen some of this Road Dogg Billy Gunn stuff in TNA. It isn't, you know, they're not exactly energetic, but they're into this. It's like, just, it is what it is.
I expected to hate this match because of that, and I didn't.
Right.
I didn't hate this match.
I thought they worked pretty hard for their standards. I thought they worked pretty hard in this. They tried their best. It is what it is, you know.
I did find it funny. So, you know, James Gang comes out first, and they do like the knockoff of the New Age Outlaw intro, and in Road Dogg's promo, he's like, I'm not a mark. I don't know what my win-loss record is. And I'm like, which is funny because like, isn't Bully's shoot name Mark? Like, so I thought it was a kind of funny like double entendre there. But then like they made this huge deal about how long the pipe that. Because for those of you who are unaware, at No Way Out 2000, Outlaws, Dudleys for the tag titles, and Billy is like nurse. You can tell like he barely uses his left arm in the match because he needs surgery because it's like that following week they kick him out of DX to write him off TV. But so to play on that, the Dudleys end up hitting him in the shoulder with a pipe, and it's not 4 feet long, like. Because they pull out a 4 feet long in this match, and it's the most ridiculous looking thing. I'm like, it's not the length. It'd be like if it was 4 feet thick, like that would hurt.
But doesn't it initially? I think in the first promo, it's claimed that it's 5.
Yes,
then
the
it's
video
4, and I
package.
believe
Yes.
yes, and I believe Mike Tenay at one point musters 3. They don't seem to conclude. They're not sure,
They're not
but
sure.
they just know it's very big.
Yeah.
I will say I do think, you know, blessing the curse right, the table thing for the Dudleys, because they're in here and they're working this like heat segment, and the Impact Zone just goes, "We want table," and they just start chanting it, and it's like, you're not going to get them right now, guys.
Yeah.
They're in a heat segment. But by the way, who was the babyface in this match? Because the match was worked like the Outlaws were the babyface. Yeah, because Billy made the hot tag. Yeah. So it was like, are they I didn't think they were the babyface, but maybe. I don't know.
I didn't think so either, but because I was pretty sure Team 3D, you know, from the time they came in until, you know, late in the run, I thought they were babyfaces pretty much the whole time.
Yeah, I agreed. Yeah, but then I guess it was babyface. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not
it could
sure.
have been. It was weird. I was wondering, did Bubba's luggage get lost? Because he's out there in like jeans and a TNA t-shirt, and like, I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah,
here?
man, that was a tough look. Honestly, like, I don't think it was generous to either of them, the looks they got into, like, because Devon gets really big, right? And like, look, I'm the one to judge, but like,
right.
It makes for a really weird dynamic, because, you know, you speaking about branding being important. There is nothing worse than the WWF fan that doesn't watch TNA looking on and going, "Oh God, look at Devon!" Like, because it just has, you know, it's the natural response is, "Oh, look at these poor guys now; they've got all old," and it's like, you know, that's just the way that perception is reality, right? Yeah. It's hard, but they worked hard. It's you know, it's the Outlaws and the Dudleys in 2006.
Bubba throws a dropped kick.
Yeah,
sure
does.
I did enjoy the dueling flip flop and fly spot though with him and Road Dogg. Like, I thought that was fun. But yeah, then Road Dogg, like I said, they pull out this steel lead pipe that's like this long. I'm like, what? Like, yeah, they're like usually like that long. I don't know. It was weird. But he hits Devon, and the James gang get the win. So they get their win back, brother.
They do. Look, at least it wasn't. I'll say this much. I thought this show was very well paced in terms of the right matches getting the right amount of time.
Yeah.
And this was, I don't know what this came in at, but it definitely didn't overstay its welcome. They didn't think this was better than it would have been, because it didn't need any more time, right? They did everything they could do at that point. It was fun.
Yep. We get Borash interviewing Abyss and James Mitchell. And from here on out, I don't know if you picked up on this, you could, when there's like, especially when there's doing interviews, you can hear the Spanish commentary team in the background talking.
Okay, I have a theory on this. I don't think it even starts here. I think it just gets louder. I think I heard it earlier too. I just know that this is when I noticed it. On one of the ones, I want to say Christian's promo before the main, it is absurd how loud it is. Yes. Like, you can hear it so loud, and it's very but it's TNA, isn't it? You know, it's flesh them. It's stuff like that. You just can't accept it. It's weird.
But basically the gist is Abyss and James Mitchell intend to murder Christian Cage in the main event.
They do. I like this act. James Mitchell was great, right? It's a cool act.
Yeah.
It's fun.
A little campy, but you know, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So apparently when they aired this live, there was a issue with the feed during the opening match, because they replay like the last 2 minutes of the Liger Petey Williams match. So that was fun. And then Christy Hemme comes out, and I'm like, oh man. And she's going to present the World X Cup to the winner of this next match, which is the aforementioned gauntlet. It's basically a Royal Rumble, but once it gets down to the final 2, then you win by pinfall or submission.
Yes.
And like you said, there's 16 guys, 4 from each country.
Right.
You know, a bunch of people, you know, Puma, and, you know, Petey Williams is in it, Chris Sabin is in it, Sanjay Dutt's in it,
right.
Eric Young's in it, Alex Shelley, Liger's in it, Jay Lethal is in it, and if you know, a bunch
talent
of other...
pool was not the problem, right? The talent pool is not the problem.
No.
It's just just a lot. It's a lot going on.
It's a lot going on. They announced that it was 2-minute intervals, and like the first like 2 people it was 2 minutes, and then they're like, screw this, we're just going with 1.
Right. Yeah. It was, but, by the way, you mentioned Christy Hemme. I have to say, I enjoy the Mike Tenay and the Don West. Bless their hearts. You know, they're trying their best. It's the World Cup of wrestling, allegedly.
Yeah.
Okay. It's what we're trying to.
Yes.
And out comes Christy Hemme, and Don West says something to the effect of, well, there's the only motivation you need. She's handing them the trophy, Don. Can we not act like 15-year-old boys? It's a World Cup for once. You know, this craze. And I think it's mostly died off. This craze in the 2000s of like women making the announcers act like 12-year-old boys is the like wackiest thing.
Yes.
It's supposed to be this grand tournament on it. Her just handing it to him shouldn't be the motivation. Winning the thing should be the motivation, but they can't help themselves. It's wild.
There's at some point again, because it's 2006, they plug Nacho Libre. A Poison Rana in 2006 is an insane move.
Yes, he's not done regularly on Dynamite at this point. Once a week, right? You know.
I mean, even today when it's
a cool move.
It's still like a really cool move, but in 2006 it was like, holy crap.
Yeah, no, 100%. But did you not? I mentioned Dynamite. This is big. This match is big AEW vibes. You know when they do those shitty tag battle royals where they? It's not. I want to make clear this match is not shitty because the talent is amazing and like there's good stuff in it. But it's also just like, can you just like pick 2 more guys and have a good wrestling match? Does it have to be a 16-man? Could you not have made them pick 2 from a team even?
Right.
It's always such excess, isn't it? It's like bigger is better, more is better.
Well, that was the whole confusing thing about the World X Cup concept, because it was like they were singles matches, but then it was a team concept, but then it's just all over the place. It looked like Sanjay legit hurt his ankle on his elimination. The final 2 are Petey Williams and Puma. Petey hits the Canadian Destroyer and wins. And then we get Big Sexy coming out. And he just jackknifes the crap out of Puma and cuts a promo on the X Division.
Yeah, so before we get to that, I must say I love the way that the match ends and they throw up the graphic and it's a tire.
Yes.
And Mike Tenay just can't fathom the idea.
What are we going to do?
It's like, well, you guys worked the concept out, Mike. I don't know. It was always an option here. It was a possibility. But I will say, Eric Young, you talk about guys like I mentioned this somebody just good at pro wrestling. Yeah. That dude just gets over, doesn't he? He just gets over live, Eric Young. He's out here doing this comedy shtick as like a heel baby face. It's bizarre. He's about to become a big comedy character, and the people love him. And it stands out in a match like this where everyone's coming in and doing their coolest moves. Kevin Nash at this time is the greatest wrestler ever. Like, bar none, there is no debate. This version of Kevin Nash is peak Nash nonsense. It's great.
He's one of my favorite people in wrestling. Like, Kevin Nash is just... He's so... Because he legitimately doesn't give a shit. Like, it's all, all about the money and the miles. Like, it's a business, but, straightforward. And there's something admirable about that in a way, where it's like, it's cool and all that, but okay, what's the money? What's the business end of it type thing? So.
No, I agree. And I think this was ahead of its time in the sense that it's effectively a wrestling culture clash playing out on your screen, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you have everything you just said. At least 14 of these 16 guys are against. They stand for the opposite. It's an art form. And look, it's their gig. They can do what they want with it, but it fits Kevin. It's way within his lane, and it's I think this creates some really fun stuff for the X-Division from what I've seen and what I remember.
Yes, because this is the whole paparazzi productions thing with Alex Shelley and stuff. So there's some good stuff there.
Which is perhaps the most like fondly remembered TNA bit ever. Like that still shows up on Twitter every week, right? The paparazzi productions thing.
Yeah. So Borash interviews Joe. He's got a great line. He says, "I don't need to hold hands and sing Kumbaya to kick some ass." And I'm like, perfect.
Yeah, man. It's like Joe's such an anomaly because if you just look at what he can do, you wouldn't think he'd be. Even here, he's a good promo. Yeah. And obviously, he ends up being like even leagues beyond this as a promo.
Yes.
But he's so a co-main event here, which I would say either second or third for my favorite match of the night.
Yes.
Behind the match we spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
So we have Jeff and Steiner against Sting and Joe. And I have to say, this is going to sound ridiculous for me because I'm the biggest Samoa Joe fan, but every single time I watch this version of Joe, at some point I'm like, wow, he's just freakish. The way he can move is unbelievable, isn't it? Especially with these three gentlemen who are obviously, they're getting up in age.
Yes.
So he looks even more incredible.
Yes.
This was fun. I enjoyed this a lot.
Oh yeah, sure. Joe had a really nice article a few months back about Joe. I will put the link in the video description so you guys can go check that out.
I appreciate Chris. He's one of the few guys, as you know, that I remove all sense of objectivity from.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
I just love the guy.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
and we all have those guys. Like,
you have to, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I feel like professionalism always gets the wrong in wrestling. People look at that as being like unbiased, and it's like, no, there's things you can be professional on. You can have your favorites, like rock with it. It's fun. It's wrestling. You know, it's completely subjective. But yeah, I appreciate it, Chris. Thanks.
Joe, did you have a ball-bearing necklace back in the day?
I did not. No,
Right.
I should have.
I did.
I should have. I didn't.
I did. But that's what the first thing struck me when I saw Joe was how much. Look, he was never a small man, but he's considerably smaller than what he ended up.
He looks kind of good here by comparison, right?
Like, and to think that this version of the Joe is like his body type at this point, like disqualified him from from going to Vince.
Right.
Like, imagine.
Yeah, it's weird, man. I don't know. It is striking. He's one of those guys that you think in your head has not got bigger, and then you see him and go, oh, he's got a lot bigger. He looks very different.
Yes.
Here, but yeah, he can move here, man. It's incredible.
So a lot has been said about Jeff Jarrett over the years, both good and bad.
Yeah.
You mentioned it, and I'm the same way. And I think that's where my biggest, up until recently, my biggest thing with Jeff has been is that initial first few years of TNA when he was like, people talk about Cody being Triple H in AEW. Like, Jeff Jarrett was literally like matching Triple H move for move. You know, whatever, you know, on the TNA side, you know, he had his own reign of terror going. But I've over the last little while, I've kind of turned the corner on Jeff. Like, he's not all that bad, right? He's got a great drop kick.
His punch is an all-time wrestling punch.
Yes.
The biggest thing with Jeff that I've always thought, and I'll stick with it, and like, he's not here, but he's a great in-ring babyface that just, he very rarely allowed himself to be a babyface.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to be Ric Flair, you know, and I don't get that. I've never understood it.
Mm-hmm.
But he's good here. And in addition, I actually think there's something positive about all these men here. So we've seen in AEW recently, Sting is a pretty selfless all-time guy, right? Like, he's pretty giving. And here, he does the right thing. He takes the heat, and Joe can do the hot take.
Mm-hmm.
Thank the Lord, because that made sense in this match.
Yes.
He's working hard, so he does a dive that Scott completely refuses to catch him on, which is hilarious. And now here's where I'm stunning myself for this, because we on The Distraction reviewed a Steiner Joe match that was not very good.
Mm-hmm.
I thought their exchanges here were really fun.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the point, because I think Scott could pick his spots in a tag.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a bummer to me, and you might be I don't know, but you know, he did the stuff with Pete Williams.
Yes.
Did they have like a prolonged tag run? Because that feels like the perfect role for him. Looking back, a guy that can do all the work.
But yes.
Right.
That, if they didn't, they should have, because
because I know that he has tag runs in TNA with Rick Steiner, which isn't going to do the work for him, obviously, and Booker, who in TNA Booker just did not care.
No.
So it's like, I looked at him here and thought, this is perfect for Scott. He can come in, do a couple of suplexes, get out, catch his breath. He was good here, man. This was a fun match. I enjoyed it a lot.
No, I enjoy, like I said, Scott's one of those guys, especially here. I mean, young Scott Steiner is a completely different animal, but Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner is one of my favorite characters, and I don't mean like a TV character, just a character in general. Like his overall demeanor in and out of the ring is just, I mean, how can you not? Like, he's insane.
Unpredictable. And like, we talk about this a lot, right? This idea, how many guys in wrestling play crazy? 101, right? There's 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
But there's this thing that you can't teach, and it's this element of danger. And what it effectively translates to, if you're sitting in the front row, how scared are you? Listen, man, if Scott Steiner comes out and I'm in the front row, I'm chilling. I'm not doing nothing.
No.
I'm not trying to shout nothing at that man. And that's the beauty of it, right? There's an authenticity to it. So even as he physically, I mean, he's a shell of a shell here, and he gets worse as it goes, obviously. But the one thing I will say for Scott, he never lacked effort, did he? Yeah, he always tries his best. He's limited, unfortunately. It is what he is.
But yeah, no, I enjoyed this match. I'm with you. I think this is probably my second favorite match on the card behind the AJ tag. But Joe gets the win. He hits a muscle buster on Jeff, and man, do I miss that move.
Yeah, it's a cool move, man.
That's an awesome move.
It was especially here. I was convinced that like some bullshit was gonna happen. This was the right finish. I was like, oh, good stuff. My 2006 brain retroactively was like, good job, TNA. Like, exactly. Even though I know it leads to nothing, I was like, good job, TNA, good job. But yeah, no, it's a great move. Awesome.
And then there's a post-match angle. Sting, sticks his hand out for a handshake, and initially Joe kind of brushes him off, but eventually they shake hands. Joe leaves up the ramp, and then Steiner and Jarrett come back in the ring. They hit Sting with a steel chair, and they do a beatdown. And Joe, they play is Joe gonna go save him? Maybe for a bit too long. Like it seemed like it was going on for quite. It's like, come on, dude. Like what's going on. Either go help him or don't, but just make up your mind. Eventually, he elects not to go help Sting, and they end up, you got to break a guitar. It's Jeff Jarrett, so they hit Sting with a guitar, and then the baby faces empty out, including the James Gang, which again from earlier kind of was like so. But.
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't sure about this angle. I guess this is one that, without context, is hurt, obviously, right? So I guess this is like Joe has been a heel, and this is that kind of bridge, I guess, and they're not quite going the full way.
I think he's kind of a tweener. Like, he's just going to kick who's ever ass is in front of him. And he doesn't really care about anything else. He just wants to beat people up, and then, So,
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I know that TNA, and this is giving them way too much credit, but I'll do it anyway. They eventually revisit these two, Sting and Joe, with that whole respect dynamic.
Yeah.
Right? Where, and obviously that somehow leads to Sting winning. But I don't, I'm not here to criticize 2008 booking. I'm here to criticize 2006. So I'll leave that. But I think I'll say this much. I think they did a really nice job with the Sting character in TNA. Where he was this kind of, purveyor of justice and all that good stuff, but he wasn't. They couldn't use him as a mute because he was useless in that point. Yeah. They needed him to talk, and I think this is his best promo work. He's probably here in TNA. So, I can't really judge the angle about seeing where it goes, but it's an idea at least. I'm kind of for it, like the concept of it,
Yeah, for sure. Then we're to our main event. Borash interviews Christian Cage before the match. So I guess Christian and Abyss wrestled at Lockdown. Christian won the match, but after the match, Abyss pulled out a chain and strangled Christian with it and stole the belt, and has had it ever since. So Christian's still the champion, but he didn't have the belt. It was a fine promo from Christian. He plays all the hits that he at the time in 2006, talking about the peeps, and finishes with "That's How I Roll." It was. I'm glad he was able to come to TNA in this era and have this run as a top guy in the promotion.
It's honestly one of my favorite. So Christian, I think 99% fan, and rightly so. When you say Christian, they think of obnoxious heel Christian, right? Which he's brilliant at, obviously. But I must say, I've always loved babyface kind of ace Christian. I loved it even when he did it on ECW. That stuff has aged incredibly well. And it's nice that I'm with you. It's more of almost like, good for him, man. Like he's got the show here. He's almost, he's the center. Not even almost. He is the centerpiece here. Before Angle gets there, he's the guy. I will say I didn't watch it before we did this, but I want to say that steel cage match was pretty strong that these two had.
I believe he does a frog splash off the top of the cage.
Right.
I think that's how he wins.
And I want to say that was very much a this is 12 pay-per-views a year time. So, like, I get the sense that was, we can easily run this thing. They did the angle afterwards. They were confident. I think it's not a bad match, this, is it? By any means. They work hard. It's fun. It never quite clicks for me as like, now we're rocking. It's hard hitting. It's good.
It felt to me because it's a Full Metal Mayhem, which is essentially a TLC match. And I finished watching this pay-per-view yesterday. In the middle of this match, I had to pause it to go do something. And when I hit pause, I noticed that there were 7 minutes left in the show. And I'm like, did something run long? Like, maybe
it was the Petey thing. We'll have to replay that match. Maybe it was that.
It could be because, and if that's the case, like, look, you just got to take the L at that point. Like, you can't take time away from your main event to re-show the ending of a match that ultimately doesn't matter.
Definitely after what happened in the Gauntlet match, it didn't mean a thing.
Yeah.
It was completely irrelevant.
Yeah, so again, that falls into that LOL TNA category. But yeah, this match never really gets cooking. Like, it feels like you're building. It feels like they're building, and then all of a sudden it's over. Like, it's very, very weirdly paced.
Yeah, it has all of the nice kind of Christian, ladder elements of where his brain is just obviously incredible for wrestling, but it doesn't have the connective tissue, does it? It's just like, here's a cool Christian idea, here's another one, here's Abyss doing some crazy, like, it never. One thing that did shock me, they do like the tail of the tape and that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Abyss, 11-year pro, Christian Cage, 12-year pro, nearly knocked me out of my chair. Yeah. 11 years in, Abyss was at this point. I mean, that's staggering. That's incredible. It was okay. I liked it.
I don't know if it was the ladders they had or if it was, the inferior production. But part of the ladder match, what makes it is the sound that they make when a body hits them.
Yeah.
They did the spot where they tilt the ladder in the corner and Abyss ends up throwing Christian onto one and it doesn't make a peep. Like, he could have landed on a pillow.
It really, we had the conversation earlier about it not looking big time.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, this ladder match really, it captured that. Like, all of it just feels so, I don't know, man. I agree with you. It's almost like an attention to detail was lacking.
Yeah.
It feels like it's poorly mined. And the saddest part of that is these guys really beat each other up some. They take some horrible. The one that Christian takes when the ladder's tilted and he tries to, like, land on the ropes and just falls completely.
Yeah.
That was a brutal one.
That was weird.
Christian was working so hard here.
Yeah.
Hard. It was tough.
He misses a frog splash and eats ladder. He eventually gets the chain and he's hanging Abyss with it, but then Abyss pulls it and he, again, like, there's two tables set up side by side, but he only goes through one and hits a chair that was on top of the one that he went through.
Yeah.
He hits an unprettier on Abyss on a ladder, and then James Mitchell brings in the thumbtacks, and, like, takes a Uranagi on thumbtacks. Like, all right,
yes.
sure,
cool,
James,
man. Yeah, works,
whatever
man.
you want to do.
Yeah.
But then
I don't know.
Did
you think, by the way, that? Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna finish.
The match, right.
Christian hits a frog splash off the ladder through a table and then climbs back up and retrieves the belt, and Christian retains the title.
Yeah, and they did the little deal with the babyface kind of should he, shouldn't he, and it was all fun. But did you that bump you mentioned on the table where he missed the one table and landed on the chair? It was like, I couldn't fathom that Christian would mess up his landing that much. It was almost like he meant to do it that way. It was bizarre. Right? The chair was like. I couldn't figure because it looked like it really hurt some.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Between that and, like you said, that spot where he straddles the ropes, I was like, how did he not blow his groin out on that? Because it did not look good.
Outwork everyone, man. Outwork everyone, right? That's the thing.
Exactly.
He was trying here. Like, I think it was definitely not a case of, if you watch some of these, like I mentioned WCW, if you watch some of those WCW people, it's like, oh man, these main events suck. This wasn't that. Like, these guys worked hard. It just felt like it never, that happens sometimes, right? I think if we maybe have watched the cage match, we'd both be like, that was a better example. Like, Abyss, I mean, tried his best every point, right? He always left
This is my
it out there.
favorite version of Abyss because he gets. I mean, it gets really just not good in later years, but this
Sure.
this version, the first few years of TNA is when people would be, fantasy book like him coming over and wrestling Taker or something like that. Like this is the version of Abyss they're talking about.
No, I agree because he has a mystique here. Right? It isn't where it's like it gets. I mean, we agreed earlier it was kind of camp at this point, but it gets real goofy soon.
Yes.
So, no, I agree. I thought this was fun. I mean, it was a show when we did this. I was like, "Oh, Christian's babyface champ," and I was like, "Oh, it's a TLC match for beers." It wasn't what I wanted, but it was good.
Yeah.
They worked hard.
Yeah. So yeah, I overall I enjoyed this. I thought this was a good show. Like there was nothing on it that was offensive. Like
yeah, I agree. Yeah, no, I completely agree. There were flaws, very obvious flaws, but that's wrestling.
Yes.
And I thought everyone worked hard. The one thing that was really clear, there was still real optimism around the promotion at this time. Everyone was trying to really make this work. And, I think the talent did the best they could.
I mean,
some of the concepts and stuff, you roll your eyes, but it was a good show. I
was really pulling for TNA in this point because I was one of those smarks back in the day that was hated John Cena. Like I couldn't stand John Cena. Probably because one of those guys that can, we talked about having those blinders for certain guys. Two of my guys at that point in like late, in 05, 06 was Jericho and Christian, and Cena beat both those guys.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, screw this guy. Like,
yeah.
So I was really pulling for TNA to be, something really great. And, at times it was good and other times it was not, but for the most part it was okay. So
look, man, I will say this much. Like, obviously it's a different time for TNA now, but I do think it's nice watching these to know that like, they find steady ground again, right? Like, look, I mean, TV viewership wise, they're way off the scale.
Right.
But like, they're relevant again, and people are still working there and doing good stuff. Like, at least it isn't a completely tragic tale. It's more of a what could have been.
They've survived.
And that's fine. I mean, we can live with that.
Like through it all, they've survived by hook or by crook.
I mean, Ring of Honor started the same year, and they're stronger than Ring of Honor right now. Right? They're way more relevant and they're more prominent. So that it could be way worse. Because frankly, there's a lot of reasons to suggest they shouldn't exist at all at this point. Yeah. So as you say, they survived, and that makes these easy to watch for me because it's like, it could have been, but at least they still carry on, man. Maybe one day, right? Maybe one day they'll tick all the boxes and they'll be the winner.
Right.
But now they're still in the game.
All right. Yeah. Joe, where can people find you, man?
Well, I mean, it's a loaded question at this point. I don't really know, but you can fightful.com. You'll see the distraction there when it's posted, which is a podcast with my good friend Jeremy Lambert, who famously fake won the draft that we did on this channel with Chris.
Yes.
Matt, a complete fraudulence, but I will not go into here. Twitter at Joe Hulbert for less silly tweets than it used to be, but still very silly. And all that
because
stuff.
if you get too silly, people don't know when you're joking or not, even when you're clearly.
Oh, tell me about it. It gets real aggressive sometimes, Chris. You're right, but I'm always glad to come on here, man. It's a lot of fun. Talk about some random pay-per-views that I haven't seen in time. Like, it's good to go back down memory lane. That's fun.
You and Jeremy, I enjoy everything you guys do. I take great pride that I made my contributions to BPW by naming Sherlex Holmes.
Yes, that was great. Yeah, that was really cool. That's good.
I'm like, yes, they used it. All right. Pat myself on the back for that one. So yeah, they're on Twitch. They do Twitch streams throughout the week, but their main show's on Thursday afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern. You can check out, and it's funny. This past week was epic. Man,
it was something, man. It was something. It was.
Jeremy's insane. Like, let's just call it what it is.
What?
Again,
look, I remember a time. Yeah, man, cool stuff. I remember a time where he was, I don't want to do it on camera. It's like, bro, that he's off the rails. He's doing visual. I don't even know what he's doing 99% of the time, Chris. I just show up and see what he's up to. So, no, it's a fun show. It's been nice connecting with people like yourself for it. And it's like, if we didn't do that much, to me, we're already winning. It's cool. I'm happy with it.
Awesome. All right. Well, you can find me on Twitter at IbanezChris. Please go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm trying to get up to 100 subscribers, so please help me out on that front. You can also find the audio on whatever podcast platform you desire. And yeah, until next time, guys, see ya.